Awesome. Hello, everybody that is going to be joining us for our last topic of the day. So, for this one, we have Amori Abru joining us. And for this topic, we're going to be talking about homelessness and the LGBTQIA community. So, just to generalize, there are approximately around 1.6 to 2.8 million homeless youth in the United States. And a lot of the estimates will suggest that a disproportionate number of those youth are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. A lot of the times these are runaway youth. Because of family conflict and rejection. And they can also face over discrimination when seeking alternative housing, which is compounded by institutionalized discrimination in federally funded programs. So when we talk about LGBTQIA plus and homelessness, we do need, and we've mentioned some of this stuff in previous topics when we were talking about sexual violence and when we were speaking about mental illness. And a lot of it is stemmed from the rejection of their family members or their support system, and therefore they are pushed to having to leave home for safety reasons. Now, what we also find is that a lot of the times, even when they run away and they try to seek shelters, some of these institutions might reject them based on their sex or gender
Oh
identity.
wow.
Or if they do end up being able to access a shelter, um, a lot of the times they'll face sexual violence inside those institutions that are supposed to be helping them um, and protecting them. So when we're talking about numbers, we see that about 20 to 40% of the portion of the homeless youth population is LGBTQIA plus compared to only 5 to 10% of the overall youth. Um, and then 78% were either removed or ran away from their foster care placements due to
Mhm.
conflict and discrimination related to their sexual orientation or gender identity. Um, we are seeing that about 88% um, a portion of professional staff in out of home placements are saying that LGBTQI plus youth were not safe in group home environments. So we also need to talk about these systems that are supposed to be placed there um, to help these individuals, and instead they place them in more harm. So, what are some of your comments about this, Amari?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just surprised mainly because I feel that like it's a in a somewhat manner a unspoken topic.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people really discuss about this. And I just one of the things that that caught my attention was that you said how even when they go to like other places seeking for shelter, they are
Mm-hmm.
rejected based
Yes.
on their gender identity and how they identify
Mm-hmm.
themselves. How specifically is SARC looking to help on that aspect? And what and what can we do in general? Like just
Mm-hmm.
a regular guy like me could potentially provide some type of help in someone who is in that situation.
Yeah. So what we're seeing a lot is that a lot of these institutions that might be rejecting these individuals might be, and this is a generalization, and it's not to say that they all do this, but we are seeing that a lot of the ones that have done this are more faith-based
Mhm.
institutions or
Mhm.
homeless shelters or foster care uh, institutions. There will be more faith related, and because of their beliefs is why they are maybe not allowing these individuals. Something else to understand is that as we learn more about gender identity and sexual identity, and as we learn and understand more about trans individuals, these things can also play a factor when you see shelters or foster care homes or whatever
Mhm.
that might be just female based or might be just male based, but then you might not identify with one of those yet. Your gender identity is one thing versus how you look to others is another thing, but that can also like make safety
Yeah.
more of an issue.
Yeah.
um so SARC in itself, we try our best to be able to provide resources for our community, whether that be connecting them with other community institutions or shelters or anything that we are aware that will accept them. Um, you know, any type of other groups that are in the community that are helping individuals, will try to connect them with them. SARC
Mhm.
also often, like constantly, is giving out toiletries. We always are giving out food for those in need. We have clothes for people that might need it, like coats and scarves and stuff like that. Um, and with the drop-in center in specific, for members of the LGBTQI plus community that are in need, we will be offering warm meals each
Mm.
Tuesday.
Wow.
Once we go back to being able to be in one room all together and not in quarantine,
Yeah, yeah.
that is part of the resource that we will be able to offer. But that is also why um, our team members decided that a drop-in center would be a really valuable resource, because even if it's just for a couple hours a day, we are able to give a safe space, a roof, to somebody in need, somebody that might need that safe space, and we are able to use that time and that space to then connect them to other resources or understand their situation better and how we can actually help them. Part of the conversation that we are going to be having next week, with hopefully different members of the community, is, with this being a resource, what else can we do? 'Cause there's only so much that we can come up with when we're not in that situation. Even though, um, you know, many individuals in our staff might identify as being part of the community, it's still very different. Not everybody has the same support system, not everybody has the same access to resources. So as somebody that is going to constantly be using the drop-in center, what are things that you foresee yourself needing, and how can we use, our funds and our resources to better and best assist that need and your situation?
Yeah.
um
Can I
so that's
ask
part
a
of what
question?
SARC does. Hmm?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So one
No,
of
you can't. Go away, nobody invited you.
no, so one of the things that obviously affects people who are going through this is mainly also the lack of work, right?
Mhm.
Um, how have you seen the community of Lebanon, or maybe in your experience, can you tell? Is there any businesses locally? Are there any businesses locally who are open to like employing people who identify that way and who feel like, like, I need work, can you please provide me this work? Because I know a lot of businesses sometimes have been really lenient, maybe is the word, when it comes to like hiring people who specifically don't share the same type of um, you know sexual identity or so forth.
Mhm.
So, you know, why can businesses do it specifically for people who are in this community and who need work? They need money, they need to
Mhm.
survive, they need to be able to help themselves and probably their family members as well. Do you think that we are doing that around here in Lebanon? And if not, how can we help other businesses realize how important it is to employ people of no matter the background, race, pressure, all of that stuff.
Well, you do have a lot of regulations and laws that protect individuals now that identify as members of the LGBTQI plus community. So it is much harder now for businesses to be able to not hire based on sex or gender identity. Now, that does not mean that it does not happen, but they might find
Mhm.
other ways to not facilitate that job, or hire somebody, but they won't necessarily say that it is because of that.
Yeah.
I am going to be honest, as far as I am aware, I have personally not heard of anything like that in our community. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened. Side note, if anybody watching this wants to collaborate or wants to ask questions or add to the conversation, you're all more than welcome to. Please share your experiences or any knowledge that you have. This is supposed to be an interactive conversation. Um, But no, I have not really heard of anything like that happening. I wouldn't be surprised if it did, but I just haven't heard of it. Now, if something like that were to happen, again, you do have laws and regulations protecting you. You can't really do that. Um, from my knowledge, which to a certain extent is limited, I will say that it could possibly get a little bit muddy if it's like a private institution or if it's a faith-based institution, because
Mm-hmm.
then federal law is not and regulations are not necessarily going to affect them to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, you have protection. And it would just be at the end of the day, it's all about education. And I know that's another thing that Stark really focuses on and does is we do go out to businesses and organizations. And we had mentioned on our previous live when we're talking about mental illness and sexual violence, um, that we'll look at your protocols and we'll look at what you have and see how you can best suit it for certain individuals or how you can better your protocol and protection bylaws and stuff like that, um, to be able to offer a safe environment for all of these individuals. So yeah, that's like the best I can say
No,
for that.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good. I just like I just feel that there's so much influence that comes from a
Mm,
community who comes together and like it's open to help
yeah.
pretty much anybody. And
Yeah.
I know one aspect like if you can help in the topic of homelessness and
Hmm.
people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, work is definitely an important aspect of just anyone's life. And
Yeah.
so if we are not providing those support systems in the context of work, then we are not helping. We're part of
Hmm.
the problem. And so I'm just trying to figure out, even myself as a business owner, how can I make sure that if I see someone who has the talent and no matter what community or what background or whatever they're
Hmm.
from, make sure that I give them the opportunity and not think, oh, because this person does not share this same belief or whatever,
Yeah.
that not being judgmental. Um, One of the things that came to me when you were talking also is to understand more, for example, the drop-in center. Uh,
Hmm.
you said you were talking about how that's a resource for people who are probably experiencing homelessness, and
Hmm.
obviously showing them the different resources that SAR can direct them to. Uh, but also, what else? Like if I'm going to the drop-in center, what should I expect from that?
Hmm.
Experience? What's going to happen if I show up? When
Yes.
we are able to actually show up.
When we're able to all be in a room together. Yes. So backtracking a little bit, I just wanted to finish the previous comment with at the end of the day, it's all about tolerance and respect and empathy, and that is valid and fair across many other topics and aspects of our lives, not just speaking about LGBTQI plus individuals or the community, just in general. Having tolerance and respect and empathy and being willing to educate yourself. And this is something that I've repeated and we're going to keep repeating through all
Yeah,
these live and through everything that we put out there because it is very important. um,
yeah,
to keep yourself unchecked, to keep your biases unchecked. That is forever will be important. And to keep challenging your beliefs. Change is not supposed to be comfortable all the time. So if you feel uncomfortable with something happening, you need to challenge why you feel uncomfortable with that. What is it about that situation that makes you feel that way? So I just wanted to touch on that. But with the drop-in center, so what to expect? We want to cater it and mold it to what the community needs. So I don't necessarily want to say this is exactly what you're going to get because we haven't gotten there yet. But part of the things that we want to offer, besides access to resources and toiletries and food, we want to offer programs that is going to benefit the individuals that are there. So it is a safe space. They will have access to that safe space if they just want to be there, if they just need time for themselves. But with each week there is going to be a theme, And so there might be a support group, there might be a topic of conversation for that week. It might be like game night type of week. Or we might have seminars in which it's like how to build a resume, how to start your own business, how to, things like that, that are tools that they can utilize on their everyday life after they leave the drop-in center, and things that are going to help them expand and grow as individuals. Something that Stark as an institution overall does, and I feel this is something that a lot of like therapists and counselors and all that stuff do, is that we want to give our clients the resources to not need us anymore. So to be able to fend by themselves is basically the ultimate goal for anybody. So with the drop-in center, we are hoping that we are able to connect them to these resources and stuff like that, so that it comes to a point where they can fend for themselves, or they can create a group of themselves. I mean, maybe one of these individuals becomes the person to actually open an LGBTQI plus drop center in Lebanon. Like we are working with the Reading Center, maybe they'll open one in Lebanon. And we were able to facilitate that hub, or we were able to facilitate that inspiration, or them wanting to get together with the community. Something else that is very important for this is showcasing that you do have a community that supports you. I mean, when we look back at the inauguration night, we had people from all different walks of, of the world, right? Like we had pastors, we had teachers, we had nonprofits, we had students, we had a lot of different types of individuals, and it was really important for us to showcase that your support, this is what your support looks like, or this is what your support can't look like, and you have people that believe in you and want to push you to do your best, and want to give you a space in which you feel comfortable growing, and you feel respected and safe, and like your life has value. And that is something that is missing for a lot of these individuals. I mean, again, backtracking a little bit, when we look at homelessness in the LGBTQIA plus community, we are looking at about 26 to 30-ish% of youth are rejected from their families, and about 40% of them make up the homeless population. And I think I mentioned this in one of the lives, about 1 in 3 of them are likely to be recruited by a trafficker within 48 hours of leaving home.
Wow.
So within 48 hours of leaving home, you're already, vulnerable as an LGBTQIA plus individual to be recruited for human trafficking.
Now, when you say recruited, just to understand, do you mean
Mhm.
that they are like being forced to become being trafficked and be
Mhm.
like, I guess, a sexual worker or something like that, or
So more like we can say they are presented with the opportunity. I wouldn't even want to use the word opportunity, but they are presented with the situation. Um,
you know what you mean?
we
Yeah.
can have a whole other conversation about human trafficking. That's my topic of expertise. For those of you that do not know, I am specifically a human trafficking victim advocate. So that's kind of like my hub. But with human trafficking, just to touch this a little bit, human trafficking is whenever there's force, fraud, or coercion. And fraud and coercion are the most popular ones. Force is actually one of the least popular ones, and one of the ones that we see the least when we're talking about human trafficking, because part of human trafficking is building a trust with the individual, and then just using psychology to make them do things that they would have otherwise not done, but for your own benefit. But when you're talking about individuals that are on the streets, these opportunities might present themselves as survival sex. These opportunities might present themselves as somebody telling them, hey, you need money. I know somebody that can give you money, and they might present them to their pimp, or they might be the pimp, and they might be, slowly involving them into sex work. Um, but a lot of sex work does fall underneath human trafficking because of the dynamics that are involved in it. You
Mhm.
know, um, it, we are already seeing that individuals of this community are about 7.4 times more likely to experience acts of sexual violence as it is. So then when we put them into the situation, things just skyrocket. They get out of control.
Right.
And I had mentioned in one of the other lives, I think it was a sexual violence one, that about 56%, yes, 56% of transgender individuals are already in the sex industry. As we speak, they make up about that much of the sex industry. So, these are individuals that are at high risk already as it is, and then they're at a much higher risk when they're homeless and they don't have a safe space to be, and again, we mentioned survival sex. What is survival sex? Survival sex is being with somebody or being in a situation that you don't want to be because it gives you a roof over your head, it gives you food, it gives you sometimes, not all the times, some money, but most of the times you don't see that. You just see roof, water, food. And they're like, well, I'm giving you a place to sleep and I'm giving you food.
That's it.
Sometimes you even
Yeah.
have to pay them in return, not just with sex, but like if you actually go out and work, they're like, well, I'm doing all of this. And that also falls under human trafficking because now you're in debt bondage. Now you keep owning this person money and you
Uh-huh.
think that you're not able to get out of that situation. Um, so yeah, it's a difficult it's a difficult subject, and it's funny because when we look at numbers, for example, I think the numbers around 53,000 ish, around that area, that is the estimated cost to maintain a youth, for example, in the criminal justice system for 1 year, which youth that are, especially LGBTQIA plus individuals that are homeless, are at higher risk to be in the criminal justice system. Well, it will only cost around 5,800 to permanently move a homeless youth off the streets and preventing from re-entering the criminal justice system.
Mm.
So we are seeing this dispersity and what it takes to help these individuals, but we're not doing it. We see them in the streets and we're like,
Yeah, yeah, that's a tricky subject. Because and well, not tricky
well,
for the
there's a lot of more things that go into it, but that's like
yeah. No,
basic.
mhm.
Yeah.
The reason no the point that I want to make is
Hmm.
specifically how we see that like it's 5,000 to get them out of the streets and give them a place to eat, and then 50 you said 56 right
Yeah. Like
thousand
56,000 to keep them
in the
juvenile justice
yeah.
system.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that go into play with that. There's a reason why it's not the opposite. I mean, and
Yeah,
it's definitely wrong, but like um, one
but
of
it's food for thought. It's a conversation to
oh
have
yeah,
as to
yeah,
why this
yeah,
is the way
definitely,
it is. You
yeah,
know, um. So yeah, um. It's it's all a very difficult subject to talk about. I
like
think one of the things that we really wanted to also highlight with this specific topic, with this specific live as well, is with everything that is happening right now. So with the pandemic virus that is occurring right now, you are seeing a lot of students that are in residence of their colleges that are now finding themselves without a safe space to be. So now the chances of them being out in the streets and the chances of them of facing these things, if they're not able to go back home or they don't have a safe space
yeah,
to go, increase now. So then this also increases the conversation of whenever these events happen. So not just this
yeah,
isolated event, but just in general, whenever these tragedies are happening, how they affect all of these already
yeah,
occurring situations and how these individuals that you might not think about are affected now. And so
yeah,
we are trying to prepare, and we are seeing now with an influx of the students that might need help now that they might have lost their safe space back in school.
yeah, yeah. Something that like I was reading
Hmm.
right before we started
Yeah.
is that one of the things that is being done by local groups in different communities is renting like U-Haul uh
Hmm.
like garages or something like that or I know let me read it here.
Okay.
um yeah, they're offering U-Haul is offering special rates for truck and trailer rentals, as well as self storage options, just like
Mm-hmm.
as a way to provide like a space or somewhere to be in the meantime.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, something to think about, with the whole coronavirus situation and homelessness and just
Mm-hmm.
different communities in general. Uh, International students, they're
Mm-hmm.
being highly affected with this because like they don't have somewhere to stay locally. You
Yeah.
know, and if we go like if we go more to be more specific and think about those who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, and also who are international students. Now they don't have somewhere to stay,
Mm-hmm.
and the chances of obviously what you said was going on with the whole human trafficking, like
Mm-hmm.
48 hours after being kicked out of their homes, like that can happen. I mean, things just start like you then start thinking about like a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is like this is not just something that like we see now because it's happening with coronavirus, but it has been
Yeah.
happening
Yeah.
before that. And like obviously now we're like thinking about all of these different scenarios
Mm-hmm.
and what what to do. But one of the things I'm trying to think, and maybe just kind of like come talking about it,
Yeah.
is how can we prepare so that if anything like this happens again, which I can guarantee you it will happen, um, we are ready and we're not. We have systems set in place so that people who are part of this community have somewhere to be, have resources to get, like apply for or
Mm-hmm.
use. What do you think needs to happen in the future so that if this when this happens again, we are ready for it, and specifically we're able to help those who
Mm-hmm.
are more vulnerable in that aspect.
Well, I think that is a multi-level answer.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
I'm not trying to
to a
solve the
certain
problem
extent,
right
yeah, yeah, yeah. So to a certain extent, I will say that I don't think we'll ever really be 100% ready,
now.
because I
Okay.
do see that even today, like even now, we did have some type of protocols and systems set up for what we thought. Maybe not to the best, not the best that we could have, but there were systems set up, and
Yeah.
we had spoken with Katie and one of the other ones, I think it was mental illness, about trauma and how
Mhm.
trauma shows itself and how people react to things. The reality is that we don't know how us as human beings in general are going to react to different situations. So we are seeing now how people are reacting to this happening, and therefore we are trying to set up systems now,
Yeah.
in response to how people are reacting. I think if we were to look at things to do in the future, not just for any type of emergency that occurs like this, but just in general,
Yeah.
to better serve our population, is look at policies. And we all have the right, and we have access to a lot of like federal and law policies and stuff like that, as well as policies around your community. Um, are they inclusive?
Mm.
Um, or do they have a language that make it less inclusive? I mean, this is a completely different example, but for example, when we look at labor laws, you would think that everybody would be protected, but a lot of the people, and this is where you see labor trafficking, um, that do not get protected are domestic workers, because a lot of labor laws are there for companies or organizations that have around 50 people or more. So
Mm.
if you don't have 50 people, you're not protected. Therefore, you see a lot of domestic labor individuals that fall under labor trafficking, that are not protected, that are being abused because those laws and policies are not protecting them. So there's a lot of laws and policies now that we can look at that we think that are all inclusive, but they might not be. So we should all start with making sure that they are inclusive, and that they are set up for the well-being of everybody.
Mhm.
Look around your community, what type of shelters or food banks or systems are there, and what are the regulations, because again, some of the shelters are only female and others are only male. You have some that are co, but those are really rare. So is there enough to service the community around you, to actually keep up with the demand? Um, and are they being funded, even if it's just something where you're volunteering your time, or you're talking to your legislators or your senators or something for funding for these programs that are already present in the community, or to bring a program into the community. A lot of these programs and shelters and help institutions are nonprofits. So they need that funding to be able to help the community. So, and maybe that's not your thing, maybe you don't want to help that way, then find a way to volunteer, even if it's just volunteering time. But familiarize yourself with those resources that are in your community that are there to help less served individuals. So I think that's another way that you can do that. And in general, practicing, and I'm going to say this again, practicing empathy and tolerance, because I feel that that's something that we kind of put on pause for a bit when all of this happened. Like, people are going bizarre. Like,
Yeah,
stop buying all the toilet paper. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you don't need that much toilet paper.
yeah. We're still trying to figure that one out.
We're still trying to figure that one out. But no, it's like practicing empathy, understanding that in situations like this, it doesn't matter what your background is. We're all scared, or we're all trying to figure it out together, we're all human. But yeah, I would say being aware of your surroundings, being aware of what's around you, of what programs are around you, how you can help those programs. And if there's something that you think will benefit your community and it's not there, how can you bring it to your community? It might not be you yourself creating it, but you might be a liaison between that service and your community, and bringing that service into your community. So how do you find those things and bring them in? I mean, a great example for this is For White Circles. They started around, don't quote me on this, I think it was somewhere around last year, either fall or winter, but it was just a group that wanted to support members of the LGBTQIA plus community, and they didn't see it happening, and they didn't see a group for supporting families and helping them through, in their case, balancing maybe who you are as a person, and then your faith or whatever else is out there. And so they just got together and they're like, let's make this a thing. And they did. And they found a way to do it, and they did. And now they're bringing this up to the community. So, if there's something that's not there, find a way to bring it in, and don't just try to leave to other communities because they have these things. Unless unless it's imperative that you do. If there's a way that you can bring it into your community, then do it that way and grow your community that way, because now you're not only just helping a marginalized group, you're helping the community as a whole. I've said it a lot of times, I'll keep saying it. If you help the one that's in need the most, you're helping everybody. If you protect the one that's in need the most, you're protecting everybody. So, it kind of goes, that's the best way that I can say for preparing for something like this happening again, is just already being aware, seeing what is not working now, what was not working now,
Yeah.
seeing what they do now that is working, and then seeing then in the future what things we should implement and what things we should not, or what things we should try. A lot of this is just trial and error,
Yeah.
but we have a hell of a lot of history that has shown a lot of things that we can look back at, and we can say, oh, that didn't work, so let's try it again, instead of ignoring that it happened and then doing the thing over and over again, and then asking yourself, why didn't this work? I don't know. um
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. No, one of the things that I personally like have done and try to do all the time is like get myself around people who are either experts
Mm-hmm.
or more knowledgeable in the topic
Mm-hmm.
of conversation, which is the community, specifically the LGBTQ plus community, being
Yeah.
part of SARC and working with them, like in their board, and just being around you guys has
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped understand more on how to handle myself when it comes to like being able and open to help
Mm-hmm.
someone who is in a position of need and
Mm-hmm.
who is also part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what you were saying, basically, it all comes down to empathy and putting
Yeah.
yourself in someone else's shoes and trying to understand their point of view and just how they go about life. You know what I mean? I mean, definitely there's a lot of suffering that goes into it, that we sometimes don't see or understand. And so, like, I think that myself, for example, also when I'm around you guys, you always have like the latest data. You always have the latest information that, so at least in my experience, like I've
We
been,
try.
yeah, I'm like, at least to my knowledge, like I
Hmm.
can see that you guys are doing your best to really know how to proceed and just approach different scenarios, and just even
Hmm.
like one of the things for me, for example, when it comes to just even having a conversation, like how do you identify yourself and how should I,
Hmm.
like she, he, like all of these things that we have to be sensitive about it. Like
Hmm.
sometimes people feel like, well, it doesn't affect me, then it's not important. No, like it is important, and you have to make
Hmm.
sure that you are sensitive about who you have in front of you, and if they feel that you have to approach them in a specific way, then you approach them in the way that they feel comfortable and include it.
Yeah.
So instead of like just not being aware and sensitive and informed, um,
Hmm.
being able to find those like the information that you need, like that every now and then when I've been able to talk with you about this topic, like I want to know more and I ask you questions because
Hmm.
I know that like I want to learn more and I need to understand more. And if
Yeah.
I understand and like I am more sensitive about it, I will definitely think of ways to help people who are going through homelessness because of
Hmm.
that situation. If I'm in a conversation with them, just let them know, hey, if there's anything in my ability to help you, like I'll do it. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
not just think that, well, they chose to like live that way or whatever. No,
Yeah.
like be open, be available, be
Hmm.
there, be present, and
Yeah.
that makes all the difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, how do you think that, or do you have any specific place that people could go and like educate themselves more on the topic of LGBTQ and like all of the intricacies that come from being part of the community?
I'm gonna be very biased. Sark. Um, we do offer. Sark. Hi.
It was all
Um,
intentional, by the way. We knew it was gonna happen.
yeah. No. Well, SARC, we try to be as educated as possible, and we do offer seminars and classes for businesses and just for the general public about these type of topics. If you know somebody in your life that is part of that community and they feel comfortable talking to you about it, they'll probably be the best resource, because what better resource than somebody that is living that life, that is living in that life, you
Mhm.
know? It's the same like if you know somebody that has experienced homelessness or is homeless or something like that and they feel comfortable talking to you about it, they're probably going to be the best resource to talk to you about it. um, but in forms of like an institution, um, again, biased, but Sark. I'm sure there's many others. There's the LGBTQ center. They're in Reading, but they are accessible to anybody in the area, at least through like email or phone. They'll be more than welcoming to share information with you. The Four White Circles, they meet every Tuesday at 7 in Hack. Um, I don't know that they're doing that now, but they usually
Yeah, yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
mostly like once things settle down. But yeah, you have a lot of the schools have, and I always mess up their names. I apologize for anybody if they're part of this group or know of this group and I just butchered it. But they're like the Gay Alliance group or stuff like that. A lot of the schools have those,
yeah.
such as sort of like a support group for that. So yeah, I would say if you have questions, you can reach out to us. Katie, who joined us for the last 2 hours, she usually does a lot of outreach when it comes to like gender identity and sexuality 101. Um, Ali Parado, who is our CEO, she does as well. So, and we're all trained in it, so we can all go in the community and have conversations about it. But at the end of the day, if you know somebody that's part of the community, they're probably going to be the best resource. And maybe if you don't and you just feel uncomfortable and you feel like you don't want to offend anybody, then we're always more than welcome to help you navigate that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel, touching
Mhm.
real quick with something that you had mentioned before, whenever you find yourself in a situation where you might question what to do, I think it's always fair to think, if you were in that situation, what would you like somebody to do for you?
Mhm.
Forget your beliefs in anything. If you were in that situation, what would you like somebody to do for you? What kindness would you like people to show you regardless? Um, and I think that that's a belief in a way of being that you can carry on with you throughout any situation. But yeah, sorry, you were gonna ask something.
No, yeah. So, are you guys seeking for help for the drop-in center? Like, are you seeking for some type of like volunteer or person or people who can be there to provide you guys extra support? Is that something that it's needed right now, or not right now, but whenever it's we can do that?
Yeah. So we did mention it in the first live with Ali and I. We did talk a little bit about this, but yes, we are offering volunteer opportunities for anybody that would like to volunteer to Drop-In Center. Katie and I are coming up with a specific program curriculum, so that people can take it and be able to volunteer.
Nice.
Um, so that is a way. You can also volunteer by sponsoring a meal each Tuesday. So we are trying to offer warm meals for all of our drop-in centers. So if anybody, maybe you can't volunteer time, maybe you can volunteer a meal, or you can make a monetarily donation for the center in specific or for the meals in specific. So there's many ways that people could do that if they wanted to, if they were interested in doing so. There's going to be more information as we proceed and progress and see how things pan out from here on out. But hopefully, either by next month, we should be able to have things up and running again. Hopefully, but we'll definitely be keeping people posted on it, and they'll have access to that information as well.
Yeah, and then if you could say like what is the goal for the drop-in center? Like, is there a specific mission or goal that we're looking to accomplish with um, the drop-in center?
I think the goal and mission overall is just to be able to offer a safe space for individuals. It's open for anybody that would need it inside the LGBTQIA plus community. We do want to offer support groups for family members or allies as well that need help with this. But at the end of the day, I think what we're looking for is to create an accepting and safe space within our community, and hopefully for it to become a hub for it to grow. We don't want to be the only uh, center or institution doing this. We would like to be an inspiration for other centers and institutions to create something like it, or to, again, one of the people that uses the drop-in center might be the next person to open an LGBTQIA plus center in Lebanon, right? And then they can focus more on that. But as of right now, we would just want to be a safe space. We want to be able to um, brain fart, sorry. We want to be able to provide people with the resources that they might need in the moment, and to make sure that they're as safe as possible and provide that safety to the best of our abilities. So, yeah.
And how has um, brain fart? No, I actually know what I'm gonna ask. I was gonna say, how do you think that we can take what is happening within SARC and take it to the community and expand that and just be able to have the same culture that we're developing at SARC and we have
Mhm.
at SARC currently of inclusiveness and like just caring for others and just connecting people with the
Yeah.
right type of resources. Do you think that, and I know which that's kind of like what I'm perceiving from this conversation, is that the goal is to be able to inspire people to probably do the same outside of the context of SARC, and
Mhm.
actually just have it for like just me, everybody. But how do you think that could happen?
I
If we
think. Mhm.
if I wanted to start something like that, like a support group, or just something that have this the goal of making that clear and just present in the community, so
Yeah.
that everybody knows like this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we want to accomplish.
Mhm. I think it all starts with understanding that you don't know everything. Even when you're inside the community, you're not going to know everything. Understanding what your biases are, and being tolerant and being empathetic. As basic as it sounds, that's going to be the basic root for something like this to work, because you are going to need to keep educating yourself or re-educate yourself or re-challenge your beliefs that you already have in order for this to be successful anywhere else in the community. Especially if you as an individual, you would like to start something like this. Those are the things that you have to be aware of. And again, it might be a situation in which you're having to re-challenge your beliefs and thought patterns about certain subjects. So getting that education to the best of your abilities, and then I think just wanting to do something good and just sharing just having a shared goal will also just take you. You don't need anything fancy. I mean, with SARC, we were able to do this under a grant and stuff like that. But for White Circles, they were able to just get a space at Hack, and they again, and I might don't quote me on this, but I don't think that they necessarily used a grant or anything like that. I could be wrong, but there's ways of doing things like this for little to no money if that were to ever be an issue, right? So I think it's just wanting to make a change, wanting to bring this to the community, talking to people, reaching out to the community. A lot of people are more willing to help than we give them credit for.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so just even asking for it, putting it out there, being like, hey, this is something that I want to do, guide me to somebody, or what are my best resources, right? And then trial and error, and then just going from there. When SARC, we talked a little bit about this on our first video, but when SARC started doing this, we did go through a grant, and then we went through around a year and a half where we were looking at our protocol and making sure that everything that we put out there reflected this new project and reflected this new not new, but like reflected what we were trying to portray out to the community. So then our business cards have pronouns in them now and stuff like that, like little things like that. All of our staff went through training, about gender and sexuality and stigma and all of this stuff within the LGBTQIA plus community. So we went through extensive training and stuff like that, but not everybody needs to. I think at the end of the day, as long as you're aware as your for your biases, and you're just willing to learn, and you're just willing to be empathetic, that's all you will need. So is there anything else that you would like to talk
are we
about?
running out of time? Are we running? Oh, we are running out of time.
Yeah.
um well, I was just gonna say, like, I think that also something that potentially could be a solution or help
Mhm.
is just like letting people know that like you're open to talk with them. A lot of people
Yeah.
want to talk, and like sometimes they don't have someone that they feel comfortable going. Like
Mhm.
dedicate time of your day to genuinely have a conversation. Like especially now with the social distancing, like it
Yeah.
sucks. You know what I mean? I'm gonna calm right now, but it definitely sucks, and like I know that if you don't have the right connections and the right people around you, like it can feel lonely. And I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure I can guarantee this. There's a lot of people, especially from the LGBTQIA plus. Yes,
Hey.
yes, yeah, I'm learning. Um,
Yay.
of the community who feel lonely and
Mhm.
probably don't have someone that they feel comfortable chatting with. Like,
Yeah.
and I myself put myself in that situation right now, where if there's anybody who's watching this and who is part of that community and who like just wants someone to talk,
Mhm.
chat, like reach out to me. You can add me on Facebook, whatever. Like, just send me a message and like,
Mhm.
I want to talk to you. I want to talk with you. I want to listen. I want to understand. I want
Mhm.
to just be able to connect with you because I know that there's moments that like all you need is someone to talk with. Like, other
And
than that,
sometimes all you need is somebody to listen. Like you're not even
exactly, just
looking for
listen.
anything in return. You're just like, I just need you to sit there, be quiet, and just listen to me rant.
Let me vent. Yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
other than that, I mean, that's what I was gonna share. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This one ran for a little bit longer. I am gonna post another live at 7, just kind of like as an overall wrap up and saying goodbye and prepare and giving a little bit more information about the one that's gonna happen next week. But I want to thank so much Amari for being here, and I want to thank everybody that's been watching or that will watch this in the future. Once again, Sark is here for for your resources if you guys don't need us. We're still up and running. So we got 24/7 hotline. We'll always have at least one person in the office. And if you need or want to reach us through Facebook, you can do that as well. Anybody that is interested in the drop-in center, you can reach us through there, or through my email, which I will be posting with the next live. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, Omari, and everybody stay safe and healthy,
Yeah.
and do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.